to the Elder Girls podcast. We are going to record today. Anna is extremely very busy. She is the administrator for the No Limits conference that is gearing up to start next week. And so today, my husband Joe is going to step in. Joseph, everybody calls him Joe. And he's prepared some very important information for us about homeschooling today. Um, I'll let him give all of the information about what he does on his job and how he came about to talk about this information with us today. So welcome back.
Hi, so good to be here, and just want to give a little bit of my background. I was raised in a Christian school, and then when Antonia was born, our one and only daughter, uh, Sarah and I both participated in homeschooling her. She actually went to a Christian school, but it was set up to keep the students, the parents involved. So it was set up kind of like a homeschool. Um, and I've also worked in a registrar's office in a community college. I currently work in a GED program where I'm a transition coach, and so we deal with a lot of students that are homeschooled that come to us, either just because it's an easy way for them to get proof that they've completed high school, or because they actually need our services, our help.
Joseph, can you explain what your transition coach actually is? Like, that's the official title, but what is your actual job that you do? Why are you called a transition coach?
Okay. What that means is I'm really like an academic advisor. I do a lot of help with career pathways, helping students find which uh, which direction they want to go in their life as far as a career. Um, I do a little bit with helping with job searching, stuff like that. So pretty much, I'm helping people transition into our program and out of our program into college if they want to go to college.
And most of that is high school students or older folks that are going back to gain their GED and then go from their GED program into a college setting. Is that correct?
The lowest we can get is 16. That's the state limit,
Okay.
which we've seen a big increase in that since of COVID and students having to do homeschool, online schooling. And then we go all the way up. Part of our program is actually in our prison, and those go up to 70, 80 years old.
Wow.
Which I don't work with the ones in prison. I only work with the ones that are in our local college.
Okay.
The other part that of my background is I'm a part-time registrar for Wilson University, um, and so I deal with homeschooling, are the results of homeschooling, a lot. And I think it's important to the conversation that Sarah kind of gives her background with homeschooling.
Well, I too was raised in a Christian school. Although I started out, I did kindergarten through third grade in a public school. Public schools were not uh, like they are today, I guess would be the better way to say it. It was just an educational facility where we actually went and got a good education back in those days. I'm aging myself now. But after third grade, our church had opened a Christian school, and they started off with the high school actually first, and then opened it up into the elementary years, which is kind of a backwards thing. Usually they open with a preschool, kindergarten, first through third or fourth, and then move it open to the other older levels. Our Christian school did the opposite, which was probably a good thing because it was a very good learning experience for those running it, which was at that time my father, my grandmother, and then some other saints in the church that had a burden for Christian education. So I did Christian education from fourth grade through 12th grade. Then I went to public college, which was a junior college, and then also into Fort Hays State University for a year online. And as we all know, education is quickly debilitating in the secular world. So our daughter went to a Christian school. She started off in a preschool through the Nazarene Church and then transferred over to a private Christian school that was through, I think, a Church of Christ. I can't remember anyway, because at that time our Christian school was not in operation. We had closed it down for a time to regroup, revamp. We just didn't have the help that we needed at that point in time. And so we put Antonia into this Christian school, and it was a very good little Christian school. It was kind of ran on what is it, where they go? It was like a hybrid, which is what is going on now, where they would go to school on site for 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week we would actually homeschool her. And that's where we first came in contact with the hybrid idea of homeschooling 2 days a week as parents, and then sending her into an actual school for 3 days a week. And so Joe and I both have quite a bit of experience. Our daughter is now graduated. She graduated from high school and junior college last year, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
She's been out of junior college now for 2 years, so she is pursuing other things now in her life and seeking God's will. And so when we come today to talk about homeschooling, we have quite a bit of experience,
Yes.
both on both sides of the coin, doing Christian school ourselves and some homeschooling. And then also as educators, both Joe and I homeschooled our daughter. I worked in public school. I worked in Head Start and in the first grade sector of public school for 2 years. And then I also worked in a private Christian school, preschool, and daycare center for a year. And then through the years, off and on, I've worked in Christian schools. When I lived in Colorado Springs, I worked in a Christian school for 2 years. And so I have a lot of educational background working with not only Christian schools, but the public school sector, and also in homeschooling. And then I worked in the Christian school in Hutchinson for 5 years before we actually moved here to Pratt 6 years ago. So that's long story short. We've had our fingers in the educational world and our brains for many years. We're not by any means really old, but we're getting older.
Yes.
And so we have a burden for children and for people that want their children to have a good quality education with a biblical worldview and a biblical background. And so we just felt on our hearts today to come and bring to you some important things that we really want to stress. If you're going to homeschool your children, if you're going to put them into a Christian school atmosphere, just some different things that we really feel like are some things to think about as a parent, as a guardian, a grandparent, if you're in charge of your children, your grandchildren's educations. So we, by no means, we're not experts, but we do have a burden, and we just want to share some of the things we've learned through the years as parents, as educators, and we want to bring some information and maybe hopefully be a help to those of you who are either already homeschooling or who have been thinking about homeschooling or are dealing with the educational world of the secular education that is happening today, which can be a very scary thing at this point in time. And so here we go.
And I wanted to start with this conversation that I had with somebody in our GED program. And for those of you that don't know what a GED program, it's a high school equivalency diploma program. It's kind of a way to get a high school diploma, but not going in through a public school or Christian school at a certain, the 12 years program. And it was developed after World War II. Many of our soldiers went off to war, and so they missed their high school years. And so they were coming back after war without having a high school diploma and having to compete in a work environment where they didn't have a high school diploma. So the the government put the GED program in into process, and so it's continued on for years. And so as a transition coach, I was talking to another lady in our program. She's an instructor, and we were talking about a student that came to us, and she was very low and she was struggling. And this instructor who is very much for homeschooling and very much for Christian education, she said, "This girl makes homeschooling look bad." And it was a funny moment for us. We both laughed because we both know a lot about homeschooling. We both promote homeschooling. We believe in it, but we both knew that this individual made homeschooling look so bad. And from that point on, I've kind of really considered homeschooling and people homeschooling, and I've often used that phrase. And because we've had people come to our program, or I know of people that they can't even do math. They've been through homeschooling. They can't do math. They have to have their older sister budget or fill out their bank statements and stuff like that. And so when I look at people like that and other situations I've dealt with, I'm like, because of there wasn't dedication and things were not done right, this student is suffering or this adult is suffering. And my feeling is um, that usually it's not the problem of the child.
Mhm.
Usually it's the problem of the parent. And there's a well-known saying that my sister-in-law, Sister Lori Elder, talks about, and she says uses the scripture, and I should have looked it up, but I don't know where it is. But hopefully you're familiar with it. It talks about a threefold cord cannot be broken, and she says that that threefold cord, when it comes to your child and education, is your child, the schooling or school, and the parent. And if any one of them are not involved, then that cord is weaker. And from what I have seen is I think that a lot of parents' hearts are in the right place, that they want their kids to go through homeschooling, but I don't always think that they're fully invested or have the ability to do that. And so what we're wanting to do today is to tell you some of the things you need to know. And if you don't have the ability to do certain things, there are options if you don't have certain abilities or maybe not even have the right education. There are options out there for you. And and I know that we've already mentioned that our daughter was homeschooled. And I have to say that we're blessed. We really are. Antonio is a good child. Well, she's a good adult now, but she was a good child. She was a good student. She was involved. Um, and so we were blessed, but we both also invested a lot of time in her. Um, I'm pretty good at math, and so I helped her a lot with her math if she had trouble when she was younger. And Sarah helped her a lot with her grammar because that's my weak spot, which you're probably learning from listening to me talk here. But we had to both decide that it was going to be a family issue. We couldn't just say it's a mother's obligation, it's a mother's job. No, we had to use all of our resources and use all the resources that were available to us.
Can I interject here too, Joe?
Yes.
Um, when you homeschool, if you're a two-parent home, it's vital that both parents be involved in the process of the homeschooling.
Mhm.
Not just in the educational factor, but for instance, for an example, Joseph was fabulous when she got into her upper years of checking like with her records to make sure that And we're going to talk about records here in a little bit. But I just wanted to drive this point home because it's not just the mother's responsibility. Yes, I understand fathers have to work jobs throughout the day if the mother is a full-time at-home housewife and she's going to have the majority of the responsibility of homeschooling while she's at home. However, Joe helped when Antonia hit the high school levels from ninth through 12th grade, because he is a transition coach and has worked as a registrar in the college sector, he knew the importance of making sure that she was getting all of her gen eds completed and making sure that whatever she was doing would coincide or connect to whatever classes she wanted to take when she hit the college levels. And we're going to talk about that because there's some really important things that need to be done when they hit the ninth through 12th grade levels. So it takes two. We're a team. And I think what Sister Lori Elder was stating is that threefold cord. Well, in the Bible, when you're married, the two become one. And so the responsibility should not just heavily weigh on the mother. This is where fathers need to step up to the plate and let their children know, hey, I care about your education. It is important. If you're going to, and nowadays, working a job is important. There's so many options not to work a job, but as God called people, we still have to teach our children the responsibility. It's important to be able to work a decent job and to make a good wage. And so that is where parents really have to decide before we even get into homeschooling. Are we willing to put in the effort as a team? Are we willing to work together hand in hand and tag team? There were many times that Joe and I tag teamed. There were some days I just couldn't deal. And when he would get home from work, I'd say, okay, it's your turn. I need a break. And he would take over. And then there were some nights he'd say, you know what? You're going to have to check into this record, or you're going to have to check into this. And, where is this? I need this record. And so we tag teamed all the time. And that is very important as homeschool parents. And if you're just a single mom or a single father and you're wanting to do the homeschool route, pick a good partner to help you. Find some other people. We're going to get into this as we dig in a little deeper. But it's important that you have backup support and not try to do this all on your own, because it can be extremely exhausting and extremely overwhelming if you do not have some support to help.
I think another area that I got more involved with is Sarah refused to sign her papers. Um, so when Antonia would bring home paperwork that she had to, like, if she had to bring home homework and I had to sign off that her homework was done, which was part of the process, or it was a parent had to sign off. I always signed off on that. Sarah didn't sign off on that. I signed off on that. There's so many ways, and I really get frustrated when fathers aren't involved with their kids' education, regardless of whether it is homeschooling or it's a public school. I just feel like a father should go to their teachers in service days,
Yes.
sign those papers, get involved, help where they can. And I just had a pretty heavy, frustrating conversation with somebody that said that they didn't even know when their kids' birthdays were.
Oh.
And that to me, that just, and I'm going on a rabbit trail. Let's come on back. So I could talk about the many awesome, wonderful things about homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
There's numerous examples. One of the things, and I've already mentioned Antonia and how she was a good student, but when she got out of high school, she had 30 credits done towards her associate's degree. She was halfway done with her associate's degree. Um, and because I worked at a community college, I knew that most community colleges have scholarships where while you're in high school, they will pay for your credits, or you get the money back when you get out of high school and go directly into college. The majority of colleges in Kansas will do that. And so we took a big advantage of that. And so there's so many ways that are good and wonderful about homeschooling. But there are some things that we need to make sure that parents are fully invested in, and I think it's very important that you count the costs. Um, and there, what you'll have to decide is you'll have to know your weaknesses, and in the areas that you're weak, you're either going to have to teach yourself before you can teach the subject. If you're not strong in math, you're going to have to learn the math so you could teach the math. But there's other resources, and Sarah knows a little bit more about these than I do because this is her area of expertise. And she's going to mention some of the things that she would recommend if you're not strong in a subject.
So I was not very strong in science and math. I tolerated science. I'm a creative brain. Joe is a logic brain, and he was very good in math and science. I was extremely good in English, language arts, creative arts, music, all the fun stuff, social studies, history, um, home economics, which is not even a heard of thing anymore, which we want to talk a little bit about that at the end here. So in areas, if I knew Joe was extremely overloaded with his job or under a lot of pressure, I would just simply look up and research what are ways that I can learn this, especially in math, more so when we got into the algebraic era of schooling, because I was not blessed with a good algebra teacher. My algebra teacher wanted to just give me answers instead of teach me the right way to do things. And so I struggled with algebra until I actually went back to college and learned how to do the algebra. But it bored me. And so I just never really invested what I wanted to, or should have, not what I wanted, but should have, into algebra. And so I just simply got online and looked up things to help. One is Bill Nye's The Science Guy, and that's YouTube. And I know YouTube is not a good place to go for children by themselves, but as a parent, I would research and I would go on and I would check the videos before I would allow our daughter to get on there. And I always sat with her when she was going to watch one of those videos, tutorials, or whatever. Um, in her older years in Spanish, I looked up and researched a place that she could learn Spanish online, and I forgot to write that down, but we will include that in the Senora. Oh, anyway, we'll make sure. It was very no, not Senor Gato, but Senora Gosa's Spanish online, fantastic homeschooling site for learning Spanish language. Very inexpensive, very reasonable. She includes all of the handouts with her program. She has all the testing done. All I had to do was administer it to Antonia, and then I would print off her results from her test and file them in her record file for her Spanish, for her high school credits and stuff. And so there were many places that I went on. We can link some of those on YouTube or even in our podcast sites, and I will make sure and write those down. Some other areas that I had checked for help was Khan Academy has some free tutorial things. And like if you're struggling with math or science or really anything, but math and science were the two that if I knew Joe was extremely busy and overwhelmed, I would go on to Khan Academy and I would find videos and tutorials that would help her to conquer a concept that she was struggling with. There's so many. Nessie for the youngers, NessieLearning.com USA. You want to do the USA version because it's from UK and USA. Nessie is a fabulous phonics website, and it also is fantastic for those children who fight with dyslexia or have never been taught phonics or are struggling with phonics concepts. Nessie Learning is fantastic for that. And so those are just a couple. I can list some more. We don't really want to spend a lot of time there. If you're wanting to homeschool from preschool on, some free online websites are The Good and the Beautiful. They can do online. I don't really care to do online, and we're going to talk about this. I'm kind of jumping the gun here. I like to have a variety of things going on when we homeschooled. And also in the Christian school, when I was a teacher in the Christian school. So this isn't just about homeschooling. If your children are involved in a Christian school, these are some things to check into. And then Easy Peasy is a fantastic website that has a lot of downloadables that are free, tutorial videos that are free. And the lady that designed it has been a homeschooling mom for years and has designed and got a lot of those things approved for accreditation and stuff. And I believe she does preschool through 12th grade curriculum on there too. So just some ideas and some places that I really researched and dug into. I have a lot on YouTube, and so I'll just have to list them and put them in links because there are a lot of helps, math helps. There is one, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he's phenomenal with math and the algebraic equations, which was really cool because he did it like object lessons, and he used all kinds of neat stuff, and Antonia would catch it. As soon as she would see she would catch on to it. So really great sources that you can refer to for your children.
I know you also mentioned homeschool co-ops.
Oh, yes. Another area is if you do not, if you're homeschooling or even doing a hybrid school setting, like you go to Christian school for 3 days a week and then you're off 2 days a week or 1 day a week, I highly suggest getting involved in homeschool cooperatives. If you have them in your area, just look online and research homeschool co-ops in my area because they have, you can usually take music lessons through them. You can get tutoring through them. They have all kinds of options. They do field trips together. They even have graduation ceremonies that your children, if you're a full-time homeschooler and you want your child to have a graduation ceremony, you can cooperate in their homeschool graduation ceremony, which is really cool for your children and your students as they grow older. I know sometimes they really want to be involved in a graduation as a homeschooler. And so homeschool co-ops are fantastic. Really check into homeschool co-ops.
You also mentioned reaching out to people in your local church.
Yes, if you struggle and you're a single parent or your husband or you struggle with a concept, research through your church network and ask, do you know of anybody that's fantastic in algebra? Is there somebody that's great with English concepts, with writing? Who in our church is fantastic or is very good at this particular subject? Do they know science? Do they know whatever, geometry? Do they know biology? And if they're good at that, arrange to meet with them and ask for some tutoring and be honorable. If you can, offer some payment. If you can't afford to pay in cash, offer to cook them a meal and invite them over to your family's home. If you're a married family, invite them over and say, hey, we want you to come over and have dinner with us. Thank you, as a thank you for tutoring our kid, our child, or our student. But be honorable and have integrity. And if you can't, if you need to meet with them, meet in an open area at the church. Ask your pastor, is it okay if we meet at the library or the learning center or the family life center? Or, if they can't do that, then make sure that you meet in an open place somewhere where you can, be accountable. You always want to stay accountable because you don't want to fall into temptation or sin. But network in your church. There are fantastic minds in your church that have great educational source and resource that you can go to for help in homeschooling your children and just in tutoring your children. If, when Antonia was in the Christian school, if there was something Joe and I couldn't do, we networked. There were people that we knew were fantastic. For instance, Sister April Kerker taught an English class for writing, and we were thrilled because she is a fabulous writer, and Antonia learned so many fantastic techniques through her writing class. And so get involved in stuff like that. Computer courses through your library. If you're a homeschooling parent and you want your child to learn some computer things, go to your local library and see what kind of classes that they offer in teaching your child Microsoft apps, or and even if you have colleges, check into those, or your local high schools, and just check into those things and network.
Yes. And I think what a lot of times people don't realize is, and this is more for your upper level uh, learning, uh, but seeing you pay taxes,
Mm-hmm.
your kid could go to music classes at the public school if they wanted to.
Yes.
The other thing is that in the state of Kansas, there has been a huge push. 10 years ago, it was called SB 155, and so that's what I refer to it the majority of the time. But now it's called CTE, and it was a push for all high schoolers to have a vocational certificate by the time they leave high school. So it's very common for high school students to have a CNA or CMA certificate. It's also extremely common from our local college for high school students to graduate out of high school and have a welding certificate or a automotive certificate, which is about 30 hours. Um, and the state pays for all of that, and because they want more vocational workers in the state of Kansas, and so that's the way that they intend on making that happen. And I think it's extremely important that parents know about that, so you can have those kind of traits coming right out of high school. It's just an excellent situation. I wanted to share these statistics with you. According to the Coalition of Responsible Home Education, there are 17,000 students homeschooled in the state of Kansas. And because Anna is from California, I also have those statistics. 216,907 students are homeschooled in the state of California. And so community colleges and universities are not going to turn away that amount of numbers.
Right.
However, they do want to make sure that they have the right education. They want the proof of that transcript. And so how do we make sure that when our students leave high school from being homeschooled that they're allowed into a college? Well, the first thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that if they're required to be registered by the state, that your homeschool is registered. That's extremely important. And that you don't have to be afraid that they're going to come in and take over your school. It's just their policy is that you have to be registered. Now, registered means that it has to have an administrator. And so one of the parents has to be the administrator of the homeschool. And so that's just one thing to remember. The other thing is you have to remember to keep track of the students' records from middle school, as soon as they leave middle school, which you should always have their record.
Mm-hmm.
But the one from their high school years is so important.
Can I insert something there?
Yes.
Even in the younger years, because if your student or your child or children, however many you have, that you're hybrid schooling or homeschooling, if they have a concept problem and have not learned a concept, having those records of what you taught them at what age and what year helps you to go back and reevaluate. And you can do some state testing, you can do some online testing through whatever curriculum program you're using. A lot of that is so accessible now. And so if you have those records, this is vital, parents. This is extremely vital. Keeping records as a homeschooling parent, as homeschooling parents, as hybrid schooling parents is extremely, extremely important from all age levels, because it helps you throughout the course of their learning. Always. and even more so, as Joe was saying, the closer they get to high school and graduation.
Yeah, it's important. And so one parent needs to at least be able to use Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel to keep track of that. I personally use Excel because I was familiar with it, and I understand not everybody works in an office and not everybody's used to using those programs. But you have to you have to understand that there has to be a record of the high school years. And so one of the other things that you could look into is I know that ACE, and there's other programs, just ACE is the one that I'm more familiar with. They will track your high school transcript for you. I receive a lot of those.
Another thing too, I'm sorry, I don't like to interrupt, but if you do not know how to work a computer, if you can find somebody in your church that does, here again, this is going back in networking, and go on, the site is called Teachers Pay Teachers, but it's a store where you can buy forms, you can buy all kinds of educational resources of all ages, from preschool through 12th grade. And it's cheap. It's not expensive stuff. And you can go on there and you can have somebody download school record forms for you and print them off on a computer or printer, and it's very inexpensive. I'm talking $2, $3, maybe $5, depending on how fancy you want it or how detailed you want it. But the Teachers Pay Teachers, or TPT, store is where you want to go, because they have all of those things. If you cannot run a computer, like Joe said, go on there and have somebody help you print off record forms where you can keep and get you a file folder and write on there the name of your children, what their, kindergarten, high school, junior high, whatever, and keep everything in those file folders.
Yes. And really, I think that use any resource that you can to get done what you have to get done. But as a parent, I think that this is an investment that you really should take upon yourself, that I need to be trained to run Microsoft Word or Excel enough to put this information in there. But definitely use any resource that you can get. And as I mentioned already, there's different schooling programs like ACE that will track and keep track of your transcript. One of the things that we did is that San Antonio was connected loosely with the co-op, because she was going there, not a co-op, it was a hybrid Christian school. They were able to track her record for us. I actually tracked it, but I gave the information to them, and then they turned it into a transcript for us. So that worked out great for us. And there's many Christian schools that are willing to work with you on that, if they know that you're keeping proper record.
Yes.
The last one that I would say is an option, which I think that students work hard enough that they shouldn't have to go this route, but this is the last ditch effort, and that's just simply, once they're done with high school, getting a GED. Because if they were homeschooled right, they will blow a GED off the map. So that would be a last ditch option. I don't think that it's the best. Because I work in a GED program, I don't look at it as a stigmatism, but a lot of people do, and employers, colleges don't, but some people just look at GEDs like they're less qualified. But those are different options. But what I want to stress more than anything is keep the proper record, and your kid will be able to go to any university, any college, be employed anywhere they want to be. And it all comes down to the parent being dedicated and invested in the process.
Yes. One thing that we wanted to put out there also is, when your child or your student, I don't like to call them child because they don't like to be called child when they hit this level, when they hit ninth grade, they are, is it ninth grade or 10th grade? They are automatically eligible to start. I call it the Step Ahead program. It's called something else now.
Step ahead. Well, it depends on which college you're going to.
Okay.
Our local college is the Step Ahead.
So most usually, if there's a junior college in your town or close to you, there is a program called the Step Ahead program. I highly, if your student is wanting to go on to college, I would suggest that you enroll them in that as soon as possible, because what happens is a lot of their classes that they're taking while they're in high school are credited towards college also. And Joe, you may have to help explain it a little more simply than I can. But just as an example, I know we're saying Antonia a lot. She's our daughter. This is what we experience. So we're not boasting and lifting her up. We're just trying to explain how it worked with our daughter. But we enrolled her. We knew that a lot of things she wanted to do, she feels like she wants to write. And so we enrolled her mostly in gen eds,
General education.
what we call general education classes, which is mostly like your English Comp 1s, English Comp 2, basic algebra or algebra 1 and 2, depending on what she took in high school, college algebra,
psychology, speech,
human and
history.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is she got high school credit at the same time she was getting college credit.
Yes.
So instead of taking a upper level English in high school, we just enrolled her in Comp 1 at the local community college where I work.
So when she graduated, she already had most of her credits for a 2-year degree through the local junior college.
I would say at least 30, but I think it was more like 48, but I can't remember exactly.
And so if you know, and your student and you all have sat down, which here's another thing, parents, keep up a communication with your students and feel them out and pray with them and say, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Mom and dad will help you pray. We'll see God's face in what you're feeling called to do. Everybody's not going to be a preacher. Everybody's not going to be a missionary. Everybody's not going to be a whatever, fill in the blank. Some kids want to do hands-on, and that's perfectly okay. I don't feel like us as parents should force our children and our young people to do what we want them to do, because they're going to be miserable if they're trying to please us instead of pleasing God and doing what God is calling them to do in their lives. And some of them are not feeling the call to preach, and some of them are not feeling the call to be a missionary and go overseas thousands of miles away from their parents or their family or their friends or whatever. Some of them are feeling the call to be a doctor, or some of them are feeling a call to be a mechanic in a mechanic shop. Some are feeling the call to open their own business and whatever. We have wonderful friends that have mattress businesses, and they have 4-year degrees and they're running a mattress shop and they love it. And so that's perfectly okay. So as parents, I think it's so important that you connect with your young people at that age and start asking them, how can mom pray with you? How can we pray with you as your parents to ask God for direction in which way you want to go? And if they're talking like they want just what was it you called earlier, the vocational certificate, if that's all they want to do, go for it. Technical, promote it. Parents, encourage your young people. They need to know that we're behind them 100%, and that and what we can do is lead and guide them and say, if this is what you're feeling God wants you to do, we're all for it. We're going to back you 100%. But remember, whatever you do, do all for the glory of God, not for your own glory. Do it for the glory of God. Because as God called apostolics, which is what we are, we want to encourage our young people to always do everything as unto the Lord. And so I think that's all we have to say today. I know it's been a little serious. It's been more educational.
I do think it's important that we point out that, we talk about our daughter and how she really did really good. However, I completely understand there's some students that give their very best.
Yes.
And that's really all we require out of our kids, is that they do their best. But some kids, their very best is getting out of high school, and they're not really a high learner.
Hmm.
Um, but what they still have the option of going to technical schools and even universities if they want to. Because a secret that most people don't tell you, anybody that worked in higher ed understands this, that the majority or a large part of people that go through public school are not college ready. And so I don't think that statistics uh, is something that only affects public schools.
Right.
There's also homeschool students that they are not coming out college ready.
Hmm.
And that's just the reality of our world right now. And so I don't want to make it sound like just because your kids homeschool, they're going to be way ahead
No.
or anything like that. You have to work with your kid where they're at and love them
Hmm.
and let them know who they are is good enough for you.
Absolutely.
And one of the things, somebody thought I was a little hard, but because I told Antonia, if you got a C and you did your best, I'm 100% proud of you.
Amen.
But if you got a B and you didn't give your all, I'm not proud of that B. I think you could have done better. And that was born out of me going to college and not having a big science background. And I passed my science courses, but it wasn't the greatest. But I did everything that I could. I'm the same way with English Comp A at 1 and 2. I did my best, and the grade that I got in that course, I don't even know what it is. I'm sure it was a B, but I did my best, and I'm proud of that B.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's other courses that I got A's in, and I worked hard for that A, and I'm proud of that A. But you have to base how good they did on the effort they put in, not on the grade that they get.
Hmm.
So that's just something I want to share with you because there are students that get through homeschooling, and at the end they still struggle with certain subjects. But that's kids in general. I can colleges teach remedial courses because they have to,
Hmm.
and those classes are full of students that come straight out of high school, out of public schools.
And also, we also want to say we understand that there are going to be young people that when they graduate from school, they may never desire to go to a college. But here's where we encourage you as parents or guardians, encourage your young people to whatever they do, not to become lazy, not to allow their brains to become lazy, because if they don't go to college, they need to go to a job. They need to get a job, even if it's a part time job. They need to have a purpose in their life. And having a job is having a purpose. If they don't go to a job full time, hallelujah. Let them work 10 hours a week or 20 hours a week. But our young people need to have a purpose in their life. And I am going to put in a plug because I've been in it. I would say if they really are feeling lost and they don't know what they want, allow them to go to Hope Corps through the WPF because Hope Corps is a phenomenal 4 course program that, if nothing else, it will root and ground them in biblical doctrines as far as one God principles, leadership principles. The intercultural class is my last class that I'm finishing right now. I have 3 weeks left in it, and it is fantastic in teaching you how to be mindful of those that are from different nationalities, even here in America. Whether you step foot on another foreign soil at all, just right here in America, is learning how to work with people and to be compassionate and to communicate, just simply communicate with them. And so somewhere, somehow, as parents and guardians, encourage your young people to find a purpose in their life, whether they ever step foot in on college or go to college online, whether it's working a job, whatever, they need a purpose in their life and to do it as unto the Lord.
Yes, I would agree with that. The other thing is I'm a big proponent of, if you're a young man, at least getting a technical certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And a 30-hour technical certificate does not cause you to take more math. It doesn't cause you to take more English, but it gives you skills in a certain trade. And the sad reality of it is somebody could get a technical degree, and if they're in the right field, they make more money than I do, and I have an upper level degree. And so, if you're going to provide for your family, if you're going to support your church, um, get a technical degree. There's no reason for doing manual labor and not getting paid well for it because you don't have a technical degree. So if you're not the type that wants to go to college or university and stuff, that is perfectly okay. But get a technical degree because you're going to make more money doing that.
Can you give us an idea of how long it would take someone to get a technical certificate?
Well, if you're talking about a 30-hour technical certificate, that's 1 year going full time.
Mm-hmm.
That's only 30 hours. If you're talking about a 2 year, 60-hour degree, it's 2 years. And so, and when we're talking about technical, it's automotive, it's welding, it's electrical engineer, it's electrician. We're talking about nursing. We're talking about surg tech. We're talking about respiratory therapy, physical therapy. Um, the list is just huge. Auto collision. If you're wanting to get into solar power, which is really big right now, all of those make decent, really good money, and you could provide for your family on that.
Okay, I think that's all we came with today, isn't it?
It is.
So, well, thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you get to make it through this whole podcast, and hopefully we were a help to you all as parents or guardians. Education is important in this day and age we live in. I feel like it's an important thing. God's people should have at least the very minimum education so that we can be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove in this world that we have to live in. So thank you for joining us today. Thanks for giving us all your expertise and guidelines. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to my husband. As far as like the GED program, the Step Ahead program, he deals with that all the time. That is his career that he works. And so he's not going to counsel you spiritually. That's for your pastor and your parents to do, or your leadership. But he is more than able to help you as far as educationally understand some options that are out there to help in the big wide world of education.
Yes, and I would encourage you to put in the comments section if you want Sarah to come back on again.
Have a good day. God bless you all.